Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Appian World Virtual and a session related to study design and execution lifecycle, a solution that Appian is proud to make available to our customers via our life science and healthcare practice. We build various different solutions and various different capabilities that we support. Many of those can be looked and viewed on our website. And one of the areas we're very proud of is the area of initiation of studies and everything that comes up, in the preclinical into clinical space and further clinical operations, etc. Obviously, we know that the situation we are living in today, and this is not new, this has been something that's been a challenge for us for years now. The picture on the left is the rosy, beautiful picture of where we believe or think we would like to be. Everything looks nice and rosy, a fairy tale. However, life is really more like the picture on the right. And the situation within our companies as well, from a perspective of the various different solutions that we have in place, the various different connectivity and various different integrations, are a little bit more of the picture on the right. I think, even today in our situation with COVID-19, I would imagine that we have many of our colleagues that actually find themselves much more in the situation on the right at home. But putting that aside, I think all in all, it's really about trying to strive towards the fairy tale on the left, but finding ourselves dealing with situations more like what we see on the right. When we deal with clinical operations, the situation is having to deal with multiple different COTS solutions that have been implemented over the years. Many folks have very solid solutions, a CTMS, a clinical trial management system, various other implementations, solid systems, some SaaS-based, so software as a service, some actually, on-premise implementations. But we also find that much of the information and the flow of information, the way we work with these systems, requires gluing them together with Excel, with SharePoint, various different other ways, a lot of meetings that bring people together to try and align. Yet there's nothing that really puts an end-to-end capability, to allow the work to flow from person to person based on the way that the actual information should flow and decisions that need to be made. To support that, the Appian platform provides a lot of capabilities to actually smooth that part of the work together. So connecting existing systems on one unified platform to be able to allow people to work smoothly. We're not looking to replace, the big solid solutions and implementations. We are able to connect them. We're able to create a workflow, a way to flow the work between people that permits you to actually deal with the lack of that smooth flow as it exists today. The area we're going to focus on right now is the protocol design, which then, of course, flows into other parts of the work. As an example, we can see that, the overall clinical study journey does include multiple different, steps: protocol design, site selection, initiation, regulatory startup, etc., all the way, through to, the various different, parts here. And various different people get involved in these different, parts of the journey. We can see that, project lead, asset lead, statistician, logistics get involved early on. And then there's handoffs onto other folks, and different parts of the organization come in and come out and deal with various different aspects. And you need to be able to build capabilities that, of course, manage the data, but also the process. And what we've identified and seen are some of the key challenges is that while you might be working on a master data management solution or an overall data lake to connect a lot of the data together, what's still missing there is the process and the ability to actually log and identify decisions that have been made by the various different groups and individuals throughout the work process, and being able to actually recreate that decision at a later stage. So understanding how did you decide on a certain, objective? How did you decide on a certain number of patients, the N? How did you decide on the geographies in which you're going to actually run the study? And those pieces are challenging from a perspective of later on identifying, half a year later, the beyond just an audit trail of the individual fields, but the makeup of that decision. Moving on from the clinical study journey overall, we can actually focus a little bit more on the protocol design. The clinical study protocols are the foundation of the clinical trial. Very importantly, dealing with safety, quality of our clinical studies. They take in consideration various different aspects of the clinical operations part, stepping into a study. What are the various different requirements that should be considered? For example, study objectives, the overall design, the methods, assessment types, collection schedules, cost, countries we're going to go into. All those are important parts that are prescribed and that are important for us to actually consider and track our decisions around. The protocol, of course, outlines, protecting subjects and, obtaining quality data and the way to afford that. But there's also challenges, during the study. The study itself is usually, take, a couple of years. So the things will change as we step into the study and progress with the study, which would require protocol amendments. Protocol amendments, might be quite common for many studies. They deal with variability in patients, variability in environmental factors, metabolic effects, epidemiology, and of course, there's crisis and various different things that could happen. A tsunami in a certain area, or a hurricane, or in our case here, we're dealing with a very grave, pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted many clinical trials in many different ways. Sites and clinics that are inaccessible to patients at the time, patients themselves affected, all of that leading to putting studies on hold and even halting some studies. At some point, we will have to move forward to reinitiate and reevaluate how to reinitiate these studies, and that will have to be reflected in these protocols and protocol amendments. And only once we've identified these ways to reinitiate studies will we be able to then go and step further into executing on those studies. And all of that requires the ability to connect on a platform, connect your eTMF data to the roles access to your CTMS, the contract lifecycle aspects of the study management, and all of that connecting to project review and project views. This is where a platform like Appian is required, although you have solid capabilities from a cost perspective that allow you to manage aspects of the study. Getting it all together in one unified environment is critical. Stepping further from the overall architectural landscape and looking at the business value real quick, the business value associated with working with a platform like Appian can be seen in this graph right here. What we see is with the red dots, the industry average ROI attainable with a commercial off-the-shelf solution. The ability to actually indeed compete and stay competitive is certainly capable with cost solutions. But what you can see will be achievable with a platform like Appian is the breakthrough ROI depicted with the light blue balls here. The ability to leverage intelligent automation, unified integrated platform, proactive actions on the Appian platform to then get to a point where you have fully embedded operational readiness from the perspective of connecting various different systems in place on a platform like Appian, doing so rapidly with low code is what's going to achieve you the ability to actually get to that breakthrough ROI on a much more accelerated timeline. And with this, I would like to actually step a little bit further into a quick demo of the SDEL solution. I have with me Carly Shedlick, who is one of our senior solution consultants, and Carly will be able to show a little bit more of the flavor of what this solution might look like from a perspective of the study design and execution aspect. We're going to focus on study design, and of course, execution are capabilities and modules that come later. Carly, over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Evie. So today we'll be going through, as Evie mentioned, an example, going through early study startup in the design lifecycle of a new study. Really going through forming and documenting the early design and deciding who needs to be involved in this process. So as part of that, we're highlighting a few main areas of Appian. One is kicking off processes, tasking to those who will be involved in this process, leveraging data to make decisions in those tasks, as well as gathering all that information into one view that all can view and access and drive from as well. So from there, as I log in as a user, I'm in a role where I'm able to commit to study ID. I'm able to create new studies as part of this process in my role. As part of my role, I'm presented with a number of things important to me. The first are any main KPIs important for my role. Any tasks I need to accomplish on a day-to-day basis can all be surfaced, as well as any alerts, anything that is a high priority right now or that is coming due as part of my role here as well. Additionally, part of my role involves kicking off those new studies. And as a predominant part of my role, that can be a button at the top up here as well, or if I click into that, it drives me straight into the form I need to access as part of this process. Where now I can go through and fill out information relevant to our study. And the idea here really is that it can be customized to your own business. What's important to you? What attributes do you need to focus and highlight and record for a new study? So going ahead and typing information, I can quickly fill out this form. I can add in anything that's relevant, again, anything like the name of the study, what are we evaluating, what's the summary of it, rationale, any ID information. If I have a number for our systems, I can record all of that into one place, or once I hit submit down here, I'm kicking off this process. I'm moving it forward to the next step where the next role can be involved to complete their task there as well. So now hitting submit, I have a confirmation action completed. And going back to the home page now, if I change my hat for a moment to the next role, I can now have a kickoff meeting task available to me, assigned to this team. We're diving in there. I then see what my role is responsible for accomplishing. I can accept this task and then have available to me the full context of that previous step. What was filled out? What was the summary of that? What was the name of it? What was the purpose of that study? And drive that forward to fill out the next steps of this process. In this case, it's who should be involved, when should this all be done by, as well as any information about the study itself as well. So if I quickly fill this form out as well, I can quickly show that we want to have a strategic clinical planner involved. We'll just go through one example today. You could have any number of roles here where the idea is they're all completing these tasks in parallel to drive forward towards this end goal of our study proposal in this process. I could also add in individuals here. I'll go ahead and add in myself and Evie as additional parties responsible for keeping an eye on this or adding information and being involved throughout this process, as well as a due date where all the information must be gathered and completed by to keep this process moving forward efficiently, as well as any information that I want to include about the study itself. For example, key countries that we might want to investigate further, number of subjects, milestones, any notes I'm wanting to record can all be taken to one place within Appian as well. We're now hitting submit. The idea is I'm deciding who's next in this process, who should receive tasks to add in their expertise. As I mentioned, we selected only one, the strategic clinical planner. So once I hit submit here, they will now have a task available for them to add their expertise into this process. So changing my hat one more time, we're going over to a very different view based on this role. Where now when I go in and present with a customized view for this role, they have very different actions they're responsible for. You might notice on the top bar, they no longer have the option to propose a new study. That's not part of their wheelhouse, not part of their required actions, but instead they can view data information. They have access to information about sites or competing studies and can leverage that data in their decision-making process instead. We're now going back to the home page. I now see this task available for my role as a clinical planner to accomplish. And so diving in there, I have a very similar workflow here as well, where I can have that full context available again, knowing what's happening in this study, why am I contributing to this, where is my expertise valuable in this process, and can also go through a wizard step by step to add in my information in a very clear fashion. It could involve anything from number of site information, competition information, anything that my skill set really involves. Or I could view, for example, information from those previous steps and apply them together using Appian. In our previous step, we specified that we're aiming for about 500 subjects for this study. So I could actually leverage that information, combine together with other systems that you're using today to view this information in a really modifiable and really cohesive way as well. Where I can see, based on some of our assumptions over this timetable of our due date and the number of subjects per site we can estimate, about how long this will take us to accomplish and how many subjects in total we'll be able to gather together. So we'll see this example, if we're aiming for 500 subjects here. We have about 5 subjects per site. It will take about 11 months to enroll and complete this study. If I were to modify that number, I can have it update to see how this will affect our projections here as well. So part of the idea here is I'm taking data from other systems as well as other steps in the process and able to combine it together into one view to really take action and act upon it. We're going through into the next step, same idea here, but in a different kind of view. I can also pull in data from other systems and display them all into one place together. So if I have, for example, a database containing competitive information of active studies right now, I don't have to leave Appian, go log in elsewhere to view that information. I can contain all of that within this same view and access it and view it directly from this console, have that full context available to me. Additionally, if I wanted to expand out and have views for other integrations, things like Tableau, and have visualizations embedded directly into the application, I could do that as well, or any other platform you're wanting to embed to have more data, more cohesive views of information. To again, have that full context available, drive decisions based on the data that you have available at your fingertips here as well. We're going on through next steps. I can also leverage that information in a combined way in very different ways as well. I could pull data in directly, I can aggregate it, I can roll it up, I can make assumptions, I can drive those assumptions forward based on my skill set. So things like I know in our data set, our competition that currently exists out there in different sites, different studies, I can view that, but I can also roll it up. What does this really mean for me in my role? What are those overall metrics if I were to look at other countries instead as part of our study participant docket here as well? Going through a number of different ways, again, that you can view information. Additionally, I can contribute more expertise here as well by adding in anything like notes I'm wanting to include. For example, this might involve things that I've gathered throughout this process. Maybe I saw in our competitive landscape, as well as in our potential recruitment scenarios, there might be things we want to note to either exclude or include or make sure we keep in mind during this process. I can certainly add in any notes there as well. Log that information within the team in the next steps will have that full context available to them as well. So for example, as I went through, I might have seen that other medications could be a confounding variable in this study. I can add that note. Same thing with competition being high in Denmark as example. I could drop that in there as well. And going through, I could have that full view of the information that I gathered and provide supplementary documents to help drive forward why this decision was made. Why did we mention that Denmark has high competition? What information was I viewing at the time that drove that decision to be made? I can also upload those documents, log that information, view that data, and take action directly on it to ensure that those decisions are able to be looked back upon and be viewed and learn from and drive from as well. So if I go ahead and drop in, for example, one of those visualization charts that I referenced earlier, I then have that full view here as well. So now once I go ahead and hit done, I'm wrapping up my step. I've contributed my expertise into this process. I've logged all of my information. The idea here now is I'm able to bring this back to the team where they can then also have access to that information tied back to this study. So going ahead and hitting done and flipping back to our main website we were looking at earlier, we have a new task available to us now as well. Where by completing that information, we've automatically created a document for the team to review and to look at, to bring into meetings. Without having to go through and type out and combine that information, we can automatically generate documents based on what was filled out by these teams. I can view it, I can work with it, I can print it out, I can take full action on this information that's logged now all together automatically, filling in things like the study number, filling in the countries we considered, all that data can be pulled in together into one place. I could also download this out if I brought this into a meeting, for example, and we made some modifications to it. I could certainly download that, make those changes, and then re-upload our revised document back into Appian as well to have that management of that workflow, as well as those versions as changes are made to this study as part of this living process. So now I've revised it, I can go ahead and submit this document. So we walked through the steps of having a new study, went through adding expertise and tasking into it, and having that finalized document. So as part of that, this might be an area that we want to not only have that one document, but have a living, breathing area where as things are added to, I can view those changes throughout that process. And the way we do that is on this proposals tab over here in the top, where as an example, I can view a list of all of the current active studies right now that I'm participating and working on. I can see how far they are along, any progress we've made so far, any upcoming dates that are important for me to know, who's involved in this process. I can have that high-level view across the board of all of the current active studies going on right now, as well as drilling into the one we just created, part of our new study here, where I can view all of that information that was filled out. I can view the background of it. I can view who created what when was this information done, as well as the associated document that was created automatically, and have that full audit trail of versioning as well, seeing what version we're on, who made those changes, and having that full comprehensive view. Along with those tabs, drilling down into more information, having that full view across the board of everything that was completed in this process. Having, for example, an audit trail, a task checklist, what was done when, how long did everything take in this process? I can identify any bottlenecks that occurred during it. We can see our first two steps here were very quick, while the clinical planning step took the longest. That might be a bottleneck, it might be that's just simply how long this task takes. We can monitor that, have full transparency and views across the board into what's going on and when to really drive process forward for each individual study, but also have that full, more efficient view as well. Keep things moving forward, have a reference point, and make things more efficient moving forward to the future as well. And with that, we ran through a number of examples of how you can use Appian for this kind of use case. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Evie.
Thank you very much, Carly. So appreciate the very diligent and very smooth, nice way in which you actually explained this. But I wanted to very much highlight that what we're talking here is art of the possible. What Carly showed was a certain aspect of our understanding of the process, yet it might be very flexible and different for different companies. Even though there's some standards around this process, there are definitely some different systems that people leverage in the collection of information in flowing through the process. The forms might be different. If you don't use Tableau, you use some other BI tool. That is all very easily capable to integrate with Appian. The nice thing is that we are able to then look at the work that people do with connecting to various different systems that underlie this process. In Appian, we actually call this, leveraging Appian records. So the ability for people to work on different parts of information coming from different places, taking action on those, capturing the actions, capturing the audit trail of the actions, but the information then is back in the systems of record. And as that information is flowing from person to person, from function to function, each user, as part of the process, as part of the flow of the work, is able to enrich this and create more value to the overall organization. Of course, then creating more value for patients. It's really about the notion of the Appian platform is different, and the value we bring here, on top of what you might have with some of your commercial off-the-shelf solutions that already are in place and doing some very solid work, is around this notion of a full stack automation, the ability to create rich workflows with embedding robotic process automation or AI capabilities, various different business rules that support the process, managing the work with the case management flavor to it, and bringing it all together on the platform on one unified environment, allowing people to actually do work that is smoother for them rather than to have to jump from one screen to the other. I mean, much of what we see is people having 6 different screens open to actually do their job. We're trying to put that into one unified process. It's also the notion of having data anywhere, and as I mentioned earlier, the connection to existing systems wherever they are, right? So we're not requiring you to actually do away with legacy systems and migrate information into Appian in each case. You could if you wish to, but the whole notion of having the systems you're working with already, creating an overlay and orchestration across those to allow people to actually do their work in a much better flow is what we're talking here. And the last piece here is doing so in a low-code environment, so allowing you to actually do this much faster than we're used to working with apps. It's no longer a 2-year process to build an application. We're talking about 20 times faster, getting work done, getting the actual application built in a matter of weeks, being able to rapidly change, modify, build, test it, learn from it, modify it, and keep innovation going as you continue building your solution and making it better and enriching it every time. And with that, I will thank you for listening, and hopefully we enticed you to reach out to us and ask us more questions about the study design and execution application, but also the much richer level of all the various different applications you can build on Appian. The nice thing is it's a platform, so you can build study design and execution capabilities, but you can then connect it to study startup, connect it to site selection, site initiation, go outside of clinical operations to regulatory information, connected various other parts of the overall software, overall product development lifecycle in your organization. Thank you.